Some leaders leak and some leaders lead. And when leaders come to me and say, hey, Zora, my team is driving me nuts, or my team is too slow, or they don't give me enough ideas, it's usually that they are leaking. Today, we are going to look into what does irritation and what is the cost of reactive leadership, and how do we look more towards the individual, him or herself, the leader themselves, rather than looking to fix the team. Because usually, based on my 20 years of experience, the issue and the quick solve can be more found in the leader themselves. And then what we will look into is what high impact leaders do instead. And again, I have a little tool for you. You can put it in your backpack and give it a try next time when you have a moment and you think, ooh, my team is driving me nuts. So you can use the state scan to see if it's really your team or is it maybe you. Shortly about me, my name is Zora, 20 years in HR. Out of that, 9 at Apple. I'm a licensed psychologist, and with the experience that I have, I help leaders and cultures to level up. So let's start with the first point about what is the brain science behind irritation. And again, don't worry, I will try to make this as simple as possible for you. What we have in our brain are basically 3 layers. You could simplify it. The brainstem, and then the limbic system, and on top of it, you have this sausage-type structure, which is the neocortex. And what animals, mammals, and humans have in common is this brainstem. For sure, and also limbic system to a certain extent, but especially the brainstem is our instinctual part that keeps us alive. And what Stephen Porges, who created the polyvagal theory and has looked into how do people go into a fight, flight, freeze mode, and how do they move from a rest and relate state into a kind of survival mode. He called out also the point about neuroception, where our bodies are designed so, but also animals, those who have dogs, for example, I have a dog, so this makes total sense. So our bodies and dogs' bodies and brains are made so that you don't have to have a conscious awareness to detect threat. Your body does it for you. Your brain does it. So the part of the brain, which is the brainstem and the limbic system, those parts of the brain don't have any language. They are tacit. But they make decisions before your neocortex, which is the thinking brain, kind of switches on. And when neuroception happens, it's basically that the brainstem and the limbic system already have detected either threat or safety before you think about it. So what does that mean? It means that you feel before you think. Your decisions are often also made in that area. You react before you reason. You perceive tone or eye contact or somebody's posture as a threat or safety, even there is no threat, perhaps. And this is truly the caveman, that it helped the caveman to stay alive. But these days, threats might be just a tone or the lack of eye contact and when somebody grabs a coffee and passes us by, or an email or a Slack message. So irritation, when leaders come to me and say, my team is driving me nuts, somewhere their body has detected a threat. And what I've shared in the previous sessions as well is that threat doesn't need to be a physical threat. It doesn't need to be or pain doesn't need to be a physical pain. If there's a social pain or social threat, our body, our brain reacts the same way as it would do into a physical pain or physical threat. See, the caveman did know nothing about emails at the time, and we are still operating on the same type of like a hardware up in our brain, up in our heads. But yes, so that's important to understand that that when a leader senses they are irritated about their team member or a peer or their leader, my question often is then, okay, what is the threat? What is the kind of danger or threat their body, their neuroception has detected before that? Feel free to ask any questions in the comments. Happy to pick them up and answer your questions as they come. So that's the first thing. So neuroception, the part of your brain that we share with animals, has already detected irritation or threat before you even think about it. But that goes the same way as well with your team. When you come into a room, their brains have detected your mood, your openness, your tone, and they either are on a rest and relate state where it's safe, or they've gone into, oh, watch out, what's going to happen today? So let's continue. Last time we actually, I shared this kind of these three states from Stephen Porges, the rest and relate, which is that ventral vagal state where we are in a safe place and we feel there's no threat, and then the two other states that when our body goes more into an alarm mode and experiences threat. So that was the flight and fight mode, the sympathetic state, and then the freeze, faint, and fawn, which was the dorsal vagal state. Now, whatever is below the green line is basically an amygdala activation. So your central alarm goes on, and it could be just somebody's tone, or maybe a delay, or somebody just didn't get what you tried to say. And that just triggers in you a reaction that moves in from a rest and relate safety to a threat. And what happens, as I've shared with you, the moment amygdala goes on, your prefrontal cortex deactivates. And that's the part of the brain where big thinking, logical thinking, problem solving takes place. That's also the place where empathy and regulation takes place. Yeah. So when you are in the fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn mode, in an irritated state, for example, it's super hard to feel empathy. And until you manage to regulate yourself and rethink, like, where is this mood? Where is this mood coming out, and how is it leaking to my team? So what I'm saying here is your irritation isn't information about your team. It's insight to your own operating system. And this operating system got how do you say, installed years and decades ago. And who knows, not many have all resetted or upgraded their operating system. And it shows what triggers still are there that we react to. So let's imagine you have somebody who is late at work, or comes late to work, or maybe they are late with the project, or they are not quick enough. And maybe there's a trigger in your own operating system about being rushed or being approached with impatience when you were perhaps as a child a bit slower. That is still playing out today. So like I've said in the past sessions, your coping strategies become your leadership strategies, not what you put on your PowerPoint, but the way you cope with stress and your triggers, that really defines your leadership style. So it's not about fixing the team. And that's when this is something that I must hold my own past HR function accountable. Many HRs who don't have the insight then jump into fixing the team. They will say, okay, let's do a training, let's review their performance ratings, and all sorts of things. Whereas a great HR partner, and I do hope all of you have that, a great HR partner will create space to first help you regulate yourself and says, you know what, let's first look into what needs to be fixed in your own state rather than fixing the team. So what is the cost of such a reactive leadership? This is what I shared also last time. This kind of the three different states. So you have the rest and relate, where people are feeling safe, they feel trusted, they feel open, they feel included, and their body and their neuroception is also signaling to them there's no threat and you are safe here. And then on the other side, you have leaders and teams who are either mobilized, they are in fight or flight mode, or freeze, fawn, and faint, which is more the immobilized state. And as I've shared before, if you have a team who is in the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, a leader who is on the rest and relate, and who knows how to regulate themselves and not kind of mirror that emotion and mirror their stress, can bring the team to the rest and relate. But a leader who is on the mobilized or immobilized, so who is dysregulated, always has a dysregulated team. And before the team can be on a rest and relate, high impact kind of state, the leader needs to regulate themselves first. So what is the cost? Psychological safety. People feel like, ooh, it's a bit too risky here to call out things or give feedback or suggest an idea or say that, ooh, I don't even understand what we are supposed to do. So psychological safety dies first. And why? Because that emotion, the neuroception is almost like emotion triggers emotions, and people, your tone mimics then trigger the rest of the team around you as well. And it spreads around and continues to spread around other teams and maybe at home as well. So there's a lot of impact there in having regulated leaders for teams. And what people do when they go into fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, this is an important point. Micromanagement shows up at work as a fight or flight response. Okay? Let's look at what are the kind of options in a work environment to start fight. Of course, you can lose your cool, you can lose your composure, and you can have a fight. The other way of fighting and flighting is being hyper-functional, kind of over-functioning, 24/7, running on steam and trying to kind of manage and micromanage everything, not to drop any single ball. So micromanagement and that kind of rigidity takes over. Burnout becomes the baseline, and it starts to signal itself as a burn-in before it comes as a burnout. And decisions get dumb or dumber. This is a sad truth, because when our thinking brain is on standby and waiting for our kind of like the emotional oven to cool down, we are not thinking big, we are not thinking creative, we are thinking rigid, execute, keep yourself on the lane. So that's also, if you are in a place as a leader, kind of irritated state, your decisions, it's probably not the best time to make also decisions, because your way of thinking, the way your brain is allowing you to think, is minimized to reactiveness rather than strategic, logical, innovative thinking. Culture turns into performance theater. That's what we talked about last time, about this kind of fake harmony, and how people then feel like, well, better just be nice and be quiet. And then you move into, then your team starts to move into the freeze, fawn, faint, where they freeze, where they faint and try to please, or they collapse and check out, disengage. And yeah, you lose your best talent. Those go first, and the people who maybe should be going stay. So that is the cost of your reactive leadership. So the safety within the team, the decisions and decision making, the retention. So overall, your performance over time will start to stall under reactive leadership, because people are not on the rest and relate, but on the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or faint mode. And then let's have a look at what high impact leaders do instead. Here we go. So, as I said, some leaders leak and some leaders lead. When you are in a place of leading, you are regulated and you are not reactive. You are receptive, open to what is happening. You are reflective. You are listening and reflecting on what other people are saying and giving inputs. You are responsive. You are present. You are relational. You stay connected instead of disconnected. And you are resilient. You recognize, ooh, this is making me tense. Let me breathe for a moment. And great teams, high impact teams that I've seen as well, they have almost like these micro signals within teams. They will say to each other, hey, everybody, let's just stay open. We need to stay open now. Or let's get grounded to what we are feeling. Or let's stay connected, or let's breathe for a moment. So there are these micro signals that the high impact teams have to help them to stay regulated and stay on the rest and relate state. And high impact leaders do that. They model that and they practice that actively. And there was a question before this session, like, how do you, when there's a high level of urgency, and how do you know that you are being regulated instead of being reactive and decisive? So what is the difference between reactive and decisive? Well, these ones are the signs that you are still being decisive. So if you can say, okay, I'm being open, I'm listening, I am present, I'm connected, I don't need to be right. What is more important is to stay connected with the team and find together the right solutions. But it's not about me being right or me being the one driving it. And that is the difference between when you are being decisive in the regulated state, where you still stay open and responsive, versus then if you move into the reactive state. And that is where, and I think if you look at some of your leaders in what you've also experienced, I can surely recognize some of these in myself when I was a leader, and also in my past leaders. I mean, reactive leaders are extremely rigid. When you are in that reactive, irritated state, you are rigid. You are right, and this is gonna be my way right away. You are agitated. Your voice might flutter, and you can feel your pulse coming from your temples or wherever, and you get defensive instead of open and responsive and reflective. You get defensive, and you are not listening anymore, but you are waiting to reply and whack the heck out of any challenge to your view. You are impatient. You are no longer connected or trying to breathe and understand what's going on here, but you are impatient and you're controlling. And that's where the micromanagement starts to also come. You come as a hover to check, are you guys now doing what I needed you to do? So that is no longer decisive. That is when our limbic system, that emotional brain, is running the show, and the thinking brain is taking a break and saying, well, let me know when you are done. And then there is the other side of people and leaders who, if they are irritated about their team and don't know how to regulate back, they become cynical. This is the collapse version of it. They freeze fawn or faint. They become cynical, avoidant. They might say, you know what, do it your way. I don't care. They are disengaged. They might get cold as well. They kind of take distance, and that's, again, in that state, decisiveness is not the same outcome as when you are in a regulated state with your team. And how do you regulate? One of the biggest and easiest way to regulate yourself in those moments is through breathing. And before you say, well, breathing is for hippies, and you know what, that's kind of like a new lifestyle thing. No, it's neurobiological. Because you see, we have this big kind of nerve highway that goes from our brain, our face, and then it goes into our lungs, our heart, and our stomach. It's called the vagus nerve. And the quickest and cheapest way to help yourself get regulated is by breathing, because when you breathe deep breaths and kind of longer exhales than inhales, it stimulates that vagus nerve. And that is key in signaling the caveman in yourself that I am safe. And then you can start to make decisions more smartly, because it activates, again, the thinking brain. The more you breathe, the more your body goes away from this alarm state and moves back into a rest and relate state. And then you can make a decision and think, so why did I actually feel that tense? What was this irritation signal of? And it's not a signal of the team, but something internally, what happened in me. What's the threat I'm experiencing? So, toolbox, check your state scan. A quick and simple thing you can do. And before we go there, I am inviting you to join me on YouTube, where you can get notified of the next live sessions and watch the replays. And there I'm producing a daily shorts and unpacking LinkedIn posts. And the newest, I'm going to start to answer questions that I've received from these live sessions. And I'm going to take a moment to answer them specifically, whether it's from an employee perspective or also from a leader perspective. So both. I'll cover those. And there's also a video there, most recent one, why I'm moving towards YouTube, and why LinkedIn won't be posting the video content so much on LinkedIn anymore. So go have a check and hope to see you there. So the state scan, super easy and simple way to do. So when you have that moment of, ooh, my kids, this works actually with the private life as well. I do this with my children. I have 2 teenagers. So this has helped me to navigate those situations a lot better. And but it's the same thing for relationships. It's the same thing for work. Either you are, if you are a leader, or even if you are a non-leader and you have you are irritated by your peer, this is what you can do. So, sense. First thing, what is happening in my body? What am I sensing in my body? And this is the part that many feel like, well, this seems a bit odd. And I've seen this happen in corporate life, as these body scans, and executives go like, well, that's not for me. But actually, when we look at the neuroception, your body is going to signal to you irritation or threat before your mind does. So before you are able to even say, hey, I'm feeling agitated or irritated, your body has signaled it already. So for example, in the spirit of vulnerability and openness, when I get agitated, my throat goes very dry. I have like almost like it tickles in the throat. And that I could ignore that, but I use it as a very clear sign of, okay, I'm not in the rest and relate. I'm in one of the five on the other side. So what's happening in my body? Do I have tight jaw? Do I have racing heart? Are my shoulders in the ears, or are they relaxed? Second, you move into a thought. So what's the story I'm telling myself? So if you come out of like, my team is driving me nuts. So is the story they don't respect me? Or I'm losing control of the team? Or I or we will fail if we continue like this? What is the kind of narrative that's repeating in your mind, and the chatter in your mind? Try to catch that. And then affect. What's the emotion underneath? I have my 3 favorite that with the executives that I work with, I dive into shame, anger, and fear. Those might be those super hard to start with. So you can say, okay, it's frustration. What else? What other emotion is there? There's fear. What else could be there? There's insecurity. What else could be there? There's a shame. So you can kind of start to unfold it a bit slower, but you need to recognize the emotion, because the emotion is the ultimate trigger for the behavior. And the thought has been before there to trigger the emotion. And then comes my favorite, trigger. And so the T, when have I felt this before? So if this state, like what you are feeling in your body, what the story you're telling yourself, and the emotion underneath, who knows? Maybe it's one-off. Can be. Probably not. So when has it been a pattern? Probably yes. And how far in the past does it root? And this kind of unfolding, you don't need to be a therapist to do this, by the way. I'm a psychologist, so when I work with executives, we do go there and dive deeper. But you can also start to recognize and see, okay, right, this kind of rigidity or this type of sensations I had when I was in my first relationship, maybe, or when I was a child, or when I was in school. So try to trace back, how far back does it go? Because that's where your operating system is still running. Maybe it's 1998 operating system that's still running the show today. Who knows? And then elevate is, what is the elevated move that leads, not leaks? So once you've done that, actually, good news is you've activated the thinking brain. You've started to cool down by already doing the 4 first kind of steps. You've activated your thinking brain, and your kind of the limbic system has cooled down. So then you are in a better place to say, okay, so what's the elevated step and move I want to make? Is it to speak? Is it to pause? Is it to ask or redirect or whatever it is? But what is the next level version of me that I want to show and lead through rather than leak through the old program that's running the show? So that's the state scan that you can do to help yourself to move from irritated and reactive to regulated and responsive to your team. Perfect. Well, thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Happy to catch them afterwards as well. And wish you a really wonderful weekend, everyone.